At Christmas dinner, my son pointed his finger at me and exclaimed, "You are no longer my family." My in-laws burst out laughing as if it were the joke of the year, and his wife raised her glass in a toast. Finally! Everyone was waiting for my defeat, but I just smiled and calmly said, "Look under the table." What was lying there turned their lives upside down forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. Dad, you've become a burden to all of us. Michael's words hit me like a physical blow. I sat in my favorite armchair, the evening newspaper sliding from my lap onto the hardwood floor. My son stood by the fireplace, pointing at me with the same finger he'd used as a child to blame his sister for broken toys. Papers covered our coffee table, glossy brochures with smiling elderly faces, cost calculations in Ashley's neat handwriting. Legal documents I didn't recognize. "What are you talking about?" My voice sounded foreign, smaller than usual. Ashley leaned forward on the couch, arms crossed tightly. "We've done the research, James. Sunset Manor has excellent reviews and fits the budget." Budget? My hands gripped the armchair's worn leather arms. "Since when do we discuss budgets for me?" "Since you lost your job 2 weeks ago and haven't told us your plan." Michael began pacing, avoiding my eyes. "Since Mom died and left us responsible for you." The fireplace crackled behind him, casting dancing shadows across his face. In that flickering light, he looked like a stranger wearing my son's features. "I'm 64, not 94. I tried to stand, but my legs felt unsteady. "I can find another position." Ashley's laugh was sharp as winter wind. "In this economy, at your age, be realistic." She pulled out her phone, fingers dancing across the screen while discussing my future. The casual cruelty of it stunned me into silence. "Your time has passed, James." Michael stopped pacing and finally looked at me directly. "We can't keep carrying you anymore." Carrying me? For 30 years, I'd worked 60-hour weeks to pay for Michael's college, his wedding, his down payment. I'd covered Ashley's parents' medical bills when Robert lost his insurance. Every family emergency, every unexpected expense, they'd all landed on my desk. "The facility takes new residents on the 1st of every month." Ashley's voice was businesslike, efficient. "We can move you in December 1st. Move me. Like furniture. Like a problem to be solved. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily, marking seconds of my dismantled life. Outside, November wind rattled the windows of the house I'd bought, the house they now planned to sell. "I need time to think." My words came out as a whisper. "There's nothing to think about." Michael gathered the brochures into a neat stack. "The decision's made. We'll help you pack next weekend." They stood in unison, like actors finishing a rehearsed scene. Ashley smoothed her skirt while Michael straightened his tie. Both avoided looking at me as they moved toward the door. "We'll call tomorrow about the arrangements," Ashley said over her shoulder. The front door closed with a soft click. Their car engine started and faded into the distance. I remained in my chair, staring at the scattered papers they had left behind. One brochure had fallen face up near my feet. Sunset Manor, where every day is a new beginning. An elderly man smiled up at me from the glossy cover, his eyes empty of the life mine still held. My hands trembled slightly as I reached down to pick it up. 15 minutes passed before I could move. The brochure lay crumpled in my fist, its cheerful promises reduced to wrinkled mockery. My legs felt disconnected from my body as I pushed myself up from the armchair and walked through the hallway toward my office. The hardwood floors creaked with each step, sounds I'd never noticed in 30 years of living here. Past the family photos lining the walls, Michael's graduation, his wedding, Ashley's smile that never reached her eyes even then. Each frame now felt like evidence of my own foolishness. My office door stood slightly ajar. Inside, the familiar smell of paper and leather welcomed me like an old friend. I switched on the desk lamp, casting a pool of yellow light across the mahogany surface where I'd planned our family's financial future for decades. The filing cabinet keys hung on their usual hook. My hands had stopped trembling. Let's see what 30 years of generosity looks like on paper. The metal drawer slid open with a satisfying click. File folders stood at attention, labeled in my neat handwriting. College expenses, house payments, medical bills, weddings. Each tab represented thousands of dollars flowing from my accounts to theirs. I pulled Michael's college file first. Tuition receipts, room and board statements, book allowances, 4 years at Washington State University, plus that extra semester when he changed majors. The calculator on my desk came alive under my fingers. 32,000, 48,000, 39,000. Each year's total hit harder than the last. The final sum made me pause. $168,000, more than many people earned in 4 years, spent on a son who now called me a burden. The house file came next. Down payment records, closing costs, that emergency loan when Michael lost his first job and couldn't make mortgage payments. Ashley had been pregnant then, they had said, needed stability, $60,000 down payment, $15,000 closing costs, $22,000 in emergency loans. The wedding folder felt heavier than the others. Catering invoices, flower arrangements, venue deposits. Ashley had insisted on something memorable. She'd gotten her wish. Memorable for the man who'd paid for it. $18,000 for venue, $12,000 for catering, $8,000 for photography. My calculator displayed numbers that would have bought me a comfortable retirement. Instead, they'd bought me a one-way ticket to Sunset Manor. But the medical bills folder revealed the deepest cut. Robert and Martha Johnson's cancer treatments, heart surgeries, prescription costs. I'd stepped in when their insurance failed, believing family took care of family. $43,000 for Robert's surgery, $28,000 for Martha's chemotherapy, $17,000 in prescription costs. The papers spread across my desk like accusations. Each receipt, each canceled check, each bank statement told the same story. James Collins, the family's personal ATM. For 15 years, I'd written checks without question, believing investment in family meant investment in love. My computer screen glowed as I logged into my banking accounts. The electronic records confirmed what the paper trail had already whispered: over $850,000 in family expenses, enough to buy 3 houses in Spokane, enough to fund several comfortable retirements. They called me a burden. The irony tasted bitter. I'd spent decades carrying their burdens while they planned to discard me like expired medication. Tom Clark's business card sat in my desk drawer where it had waited for 5 years. My old college roommate had become one of Spokane's most respected estate attorneys. He'd handled my wife's will, had offered his services again during my recent unemployment. I picked up the card, running my thumb across the embossed letters. Tom would understand the numbers spread before me. More importantly, he'd understand what they meant in legal terms. The clock on my desk read 10:15 p.m. Too late to call tonight, but tomorrow would bring different conversations. Conversations about financial obligations and family responsibilities. About who really owed whom. I leaned back in my chair, surrounded by evidence of my generosity and their greed. The nursing home brochure lay forgotten in the living room, but its message echoed in my mind, where every day is a new beginning. They had no idea how right they were. Sleep had eluded me that night. By 7 a.m, I sat at my kitchen table with Tom's business card, the coffee growing cold as I rehearsed what to say. When I finally dialed his number at 8:30, his secretary scheduled me for 2 o'clock. The drive downtown took 25 minutes through November drizzle. Tom's law firm occupied the 15th floor of the Paulson building, where brass nameplate S gleamed against dark wood paneling. I carried my briefcase like armor, filled with 30 years of financial documentation. James Collins to see Tom Clark. The receptionist's smile was professional, efficient. Within minutes, Tom emerged from the corridor, his hair grayer than I remembered, but his handshake as firm as ever. "James, come in, come in." His office overlooked the Spokane River, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the gray November sky. Legal volumes lined the walls, diplomas and certificates creating a tapestry of professional achievement. I settled into the leather client chair, my briefcase clicking open with mechanical precision. "Tom, tell me honestly, what can I do legally?" He raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "That depends entirely on what's happened. Start from the beginning. My family wants to put me in a nursing home." The words felt clinical, stripped of their emotional weight. They made this decision without consulting me, after I'd been supporting them financially for decades. I spread the documents across his mahogany desk. Bank statements, tuition receipts, mortgage payments, medical bills. Tom's expression shifted from curiosity to concern as he examined each paper. Michael's college education, $168,000. I pointed to the first stack. House down payment and emergency loans, $97,000. Ashley's parents' medical expenses, $88,000. Wedding costs, car payments, insurance premiums. How much total? Tom's voice had acquired the sharp focus of professional interest. $857,000. He whistled softly, setting down the calculator. James, the law is on your side. For the first time in 2 days, I felt something resembling hope. Explain? Tom pulled a legal pad from his drawer, clicking his pen with practiced efficiency. First, you weren't legally obligated to provide any of this support. Every dollar was voluntary generosity. Which means you have grounds for recovery if you can prove financial exploitation. He gestured to the documents. And you've got documentation that would make any attorney weep with joy. My hands stopped trembling completely for the first time since the confrontation. What's the process? We start with demand letters, formal notification that you expect reimbursement for non-obligatory support provided over the years. Tom's pen moved across the legal pad in quick strokes. If they refuse, which they probably will, we file civil action for financial recovery. Timeline? 3 to 6 months, depending on their response. He leaned forward, his expression serious. But James, there's something else we need to consider. Your current financial situation. I nodded, understanding his implication. I have enough savings to live independently for 2 years, maybe 3 if I'm careful. Good. That strengthens your position considerably. Tom flipped to a fresh page. Now, for the documentation we'll need, I recommend you meet with someone who can provide detailed financial analysis. Sarah Miller at Spokane Community Bank. She specializes in financial recovery cases. He scribbled her contact information on his business card. Sarah can create a comprehensive report showing the pattern of financial support. Courts love clear numbers and professional analysis. When should I contact her? Tomorrow morning. I'll call ahead, let her know you're coming. Tom gathered the documents into neat piles. James, I want you to understand something important. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. Justice. The word resonated with possibilities I hadn't considered. We shook hands at his office door, my briefcase now containing copies of his notes and Sarah Miller's contact information. The elevator descended through floors of professional ambition, carrying me toward a future I was finally prepared to fight for. Outside, the November drizzle had stopped. Spokane's downtown streets gleamed with reflected light, and for the first time in days, I noticed my reflection in the building's glass doors looked like a man with a plan. That evening, I reviewed Tom's notes until midnight, memorizing every detail of my guarantor rights. Sarah Miller answered my call at 9 sharp the next morning, her voice carrying the same professional warmth I remembered from our years working together. James, Tom mentioned you might need some banking assistance. By 10 o'clock, I sat across from her desk at Spokane Community Bank's main branch, the familiar hum of financial activity surrounding us. Sarah's office overlooked the lobby where customers conducted their daily banking rituals, oblivious to the strategic intelligence gathering happening floors above. Sarah, I need information about all loans where I'm a guarantor. She nodded, her fingers already moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Tom explained the general situation. Let me pull up your guarantee obligations. The computer screen reflected in her glasses as she navigated through secure banking systems. Each click brought new revelations about financial entanglements I'd forgotten or never fully understood. Here we go. She adjusted her monitor so I could see the display. Your primary guarantor on 4 active accounts. 4. I'd expected 2, maybe 3. Michael's vehicle loan shows a current balance of $47,200. Her voice maintained professional neutrality as she read numbers that represented years of my financial security. Payment history shows 3 late payments in the past 6 months. What happens if he defaults? As guarantor, you become immediately responsible for the full balance plus accrued interest and fees. Sarah printed the loan summary, the pages emerging from her printer like evidence in a criminal trial. The mortgage on their house shows $283,000 remaining. My breath caught. I co-signed for nearly $300,000. The original loan was for $350,000. They've made payments, but she hesitated, consulting another screen. There's also a home equity line of credit for $60,000, currently maxed out. This will be complicated, but possible. The words escaped before I could stop them. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Possible? Sorry, thinking out loud. I accepted another printed summary, the paper warm from the machine. What else? Ashley has a personal credit line with us. $25,000 limit, $24,800 current balance. Sarah's tone grew more cautious. Minimum payments only for the past year. The numbers accumulated like storm clouds. Every figure represented my potential financial obligation, money I'd be legally required to pay if my family continued their pattern of financial irresponsibility. Total exposure? Sarah's calculator clicked rapidly. $415,200 in active guarantees. Nearly $500,000 hanging over my head like a sword, held by people who wanted to discard me in a nursing home. Sarah, what are my options as guarantor? Legally, you can demand full payment at any time if you believe the borrowers are financially unstable. She leaned back in her chair, choosing her words carefully. You can also request removal as guarantor, though that requires lender approval and borrower agreement. And if they refuse, you remain liable until the loans are satisfied. Sarah gathered the printed documents into a neat folder. James, may I ask what prompted this inquiry? Let's call it risk management. She understood immediately, her banker's instincts recognizing strategic financial planning when she saw it. If you're concerned about your exposure, I'd recommend getting a comprehensive financial profile on all parties involved. How would I do that? Private financial investigation. David Brooks specializes in family financial assessments for legal purposes. Sarah wrote his contact information on her business card. He's thorough, discreet, and his reports hold up in court. David Brooks. Another piece in the growing puzzle of my family's financial vulnerabilities. I stood, shaking Sarah's hand while carefully organizing the loan summaries in my briefcase. $400,000 in leverage, documented by a major financial institution, witnessed by a banking professional who could testify to my guarantor status. Thank you, Sarah. This has been extremely illuminating. Good luck, James. Whatever you're planning, those numbers give you considerable legal standing. Outside the bank, November air sharp against my face, I realized the scope of my family's financial dependence had grown far beyond my historical generosity. They weren't just ungrateful recipients of my past support. They were current debtors whose financial stability depended entirely on my continued cooperation. David Brooks's business card felt significant in my pocket as I walked to my car. The investigation was expanding beyond simple revenge into comprehensive financial intelligence gathering. My phone buzzed with a text message. Michael. Dad, we need to talk about next steps for the move. I deleted the message without responding. Let them wonder about my silence while I gathered more ammunition. I spent that evening researching private investigators online, reading reviews and comparing credentials. David Brooks's website impressed me with its professional tone and emphasis on legal compliance. His background as a former detective with the Spokane Police Department added credibility I needed. The drive to his office took me across town to a modest strip mall where small businesses operated quietly behind tinted windows. Brooks Investigations occupied a corner unit, its simple sign promising discreet professional services. Inside, the office felt practical rather than polished. Filing cabinets lined one wall, while a computer setup dominated David's desk. Certificates and licenses hung in neat frames, establishing his credentials without ostentation. Mr. Collins, David Brooks. His handshake was firm, his assessment of me immediate and professional. Please, have a seat. David appeared younger than his 48 years, with the alert posture of someone accustomed to observing details others missed. His notepad lay ready beside a digital recorder, both tools of a trade I was about to engage. David, I need to know everything about their spending. He leaned back, pen poised above the notepad. Before we discuss methods, help me understand the situation. Who are they, and why do you need this information? I opened my briefcase, extracting Sarah's banking summaries and Tom's legal notes. My son and daughter-in-law want to put me in a nursing home. I've discovered I'm financially responsible for over $400,000 in their current debts. I see. David examined the banking documents with practiced efficiency. And you suspect their lifestyle doesn't match their income? I've supported them for 30 years. College tuition, house payments, medical bills, wedding expenses. I pointed to specific figures on the loan summaries. Now, I need proof of how they're spending money while claiming they can't support me. David made detailed notes, his questions precise and relevant. What specific evidence would be most useful for your situation? Documentation of extravagant spending, restaurant bills, shopping trips, entertainment expenses, anything showing they live beyond their means while my money subsidizes their lifestyle. That's definitely achievable through legal surveillance methods. He flipped to a fresh page. Public observation, social media monitoring, spending pattern documentation. Are you sure you want to know this? The question carried weight beyond its simple words. Once I crossed into hiring someone to spy on my family, there would be no pretending this was about justice rather than revenge. I'm certain. Timeline? 2 to 3 weeks for comprehensive documentation. I can provide their addresses, work schedules, vehicle information. David's pen moved steadily across the notepad. Cost is $40 per hour plus expenses, estimated total around $3,000 for complete surveillance. $3,000, less than I'd spent in Michael's senior year textbooks. What about legal admissibility? Everything I gather follows strict protocols for potential court use. Photos, video, detailed logs with timestamps. David pulled a standard contract from his desk drawer. I maintain complete confidentiality and operate within all legal boundaries. I read through the contract carefully, my financial background making me attentive to terms and conditions. Professional investigation services, legal compliance guaranteed, evidence suitable for family court proceedings. One final question, David said as I signed the agreement. Are you prepared for what I might find? Sometimes families have secrets that go beyond spending habits. After 40 years in financial services, very little surprises me anymore. David smiled grimly, filing the signed contract in a folder that now bore my name. I'll begin surveillance tomorrow morning. Expect a preliminary report within 1 week. We shook hands again, the transaction complete. I left his office with a receipt for my retainer and the knowledge that professional eyes would soon be documenting my family's every financial indiscretion. The drive home took me past the restaurant where Ashley had insisted we celebrate her birthday last year. I'd paid for dinner that evening, as always. Soon I'd know exactly how often they dined at such places using money that should have secured my own future. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Michael. Dad, please call us back. We need to discuss the timeline. I turned off the phone without reading further. Let them wonder about my silence while David Brooks gathered evidence of their financial irresponsibility. 7 days of waiting had tested my patience, but David's preliminary reports justified every dollar of his retainer. Each evening briefing revealed new evidence of my family's financial irresponsibility. Expensive restaurants, designer shopping, luxury services paid for while they claimed poverty. Tonight, I needed to see for myself. Maple Heights Drive stretched before me like a showcase of suburban prosperity. Michael and Ashley's house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, its perfectly manicured lawn and architectural flourishes announcing success to anyone passing by. Success funded by my guarantees and sacrifices. I parked across the street, positioning my car where streetlights wouldn't reveal my presence. Through binoculars, their lifestyle unfolded like evidence in a criminal trial. Michael's BMW gleamed in the driveway, the $47,000 loan I'd guaranteed. Beside it sat Ashley's Mercedes SUV, another financial obligation bearing my signature. Together, those vehicles represented nearly $80,000 in debt secured by my creditworthiness. My phone vibrated. David's evening check-in, right on schedule. James, I've got comprehensive documentation from this week. Are you ready for the full report? I'm sitting outside their house right now. The admission felt like crossing another line in my transformation from victim to strategist. Interesting timing. They just had dinner delivered from Cascadia. That's a $150 per person restaurant. Third time this week. Through the windows, I watched them unpacking elegant containers, pouring wine from bottles that probably cost more than many families spent on groceries. The casual way Ashley arranged the gourmet containers revealed someone accustomed to luxury. What else have you documented? Tuesday. shopping trip to Nordstrom, 3 hours, multiple bags. Wednesday, spa day for Ashley, $240. Thursday, Michael bought a new golf set, $1,800. David's voice carried professional detachment, but I heard the underlying judgment. Friday, couples massage at the resort spa, $400 for both. Each item hit like a physical blow. While they planned to warehouse me in a nursing home, they spent my guaranteed money on luxuries I hadn't enjoyed in years. David, how does this compare to their reported income? Michael's salary supports basic living expenses, maybe some modest entertainment. Everything else, the house, cars, lifestyle, depends entirely on external financing. Papers rustled through the phone connection. Without your guarantees, they'd qualify for a small apartment and used cars. A contractor's truck pulled into their driveway. 2 men unloaded expensive patio furniture, assembling an outdoor dining set that looked Italian, expensive, and completely unnecessary for November weather in Spokane. They're installing new patio furniture right now. That's the outdoor kitchen expansion, started Monday, estimated cost $12,000. David's documentation had captured everything. Charged to the home equity line, you guaranteed. Then $12,000 for outdoor cooking equipment they'd use 3 months per year. The absurdity of their priorities crystallized my resolve completely. The legal documentation looks solid. Photographs, receipts, spending patterns, lifestyle analysis compared to income, everything admissible in family court. David paused. James, this level of financial irresponsibility while planning to institutionalize you creates a compelling case for fund recovery. Through the windows, Michael and Ashley laughed at something on their oversized television, probably another expensive entertainment system purchased with borrowed money. Their casual contentment while planning my exile felt like betrayal, distilled into its purest form. Send me everything tomorrow morning. I'm ready to move forward. Complete file will be in your email by 9 a.m. James, whatever you're planning, you have substantial legal grounds. The call ended as the contractors finished their installation. Michael emerged to inspect their work, nodding approval at another luxury purchased with my financial backing. He looked satisfied, successful, completely unaware that his lifestyle was about to face a reckoning. I started my car and drove away from their suburban paradise, leaving them to enjoy their expensive dinner and new patio furniture. Tomorrow would bring different conversations about wills, beneficiaries, and the legal consequences of financial exploitation. My phone showed 3 unread messages from Michael about finalizing arrangements. I deleted them without reading, my decision crystallized by everything I'd witnessed. Let them enjoy their final weeks of luxury. 2 days of careful preparation had brought me to this moment. I'd scheduled the appointment, organized my evidence, and mentally rehearsed each step of what would be irreversible legal action. The drive downtown felt different this time. Final, decisive, like crossing a bridge I could never recross. Patricia Henderson's notary office occupied the ground floor of the Courthouse Plaza building, its professional atmosphere reflecting decades of serious legal work. Estate planning, debt documentation, family disputes. She'd witnessed them all with the neutral efficiency her profession demanded. Mr. Collins, please come in. I understand you need comprehensive document revision. Patricia's desk displayed the tools of legal precision: computer terminals, official seals, witness forms arranged with methodical care. Her assessment of me was immediate and professional. Mental capacity, legal understanding, decision-making competence. I want to revise my will completely and prepare formal debt recovery documents. I opened my briefcase, revealing the surveillance evidence David had compiled. My family has been financially irresponsible while planning to institutionalize me. She examined David's reports with practiced neutrality, noting spending patterns and lifestyle documentation without emotional reaction. These appear to be professionally compiled. Are you seeking complete beneficiary changes? Every dollar returned to me. That is your right, Mr. Collins. Patricia pulled standard forms from her filing system, her fingers moving across the keyboard with the efficiency of someone who'd processed countless family disputes. The legal language appeared on her screen. Last will and testament revisions, debt demand documentation, asset protection protocols. Current beneficiaries are your son, Michael, and daughter-in-law, Ashley. Correct, along with Ashley's parents, Robert and Martha Johnson. Each name felt like removing a weight I'd carried for decades. I want all family members completely excluded from inheritance. Understood. Who would you prefer as beneficiaries? The Spokane Humane Society and United Way, organizations that wouldn't betray my trust or exploit my generosity, 50% each. Patricia's typing continued steadily, translating my decisions into legal language that would survive court challenges. Now, regarding the debt recovery documentation. You mentioned guaranteed loans, $410,000 in active guarantees, car loans, mortgage, credit lines. I provided Sarah's banking summaries, each figure representing my financial vulnerability. I want formal demand for complete repayment within 30 days. These documents will require certified delivery to ensure legal compliance. Patricia reviewed the loan details with professional thoroughness. Are you prepared for potential family resistance or legal challenges? I have comprehensive evidence of their financial irresponsibility and attorney representation. The document preparation took 90 minutes of precise legal work. Each revision, each exclusion, each demand was carefully crafted to withstand scrutiny. Patricia maintained professional detachment while I systematically dismantled 30 years of family financial relationships. Final review before signing. I read through each document with the attention my financial background demanded. The will excluded every family member with clinical precision. The debt demands provided clear timelines and legal consequences. Asset protection protocols prevented future family claims against my estate. These documents give you maximum legal protection and recovery options. Patricia arranged the papers for signing, her witnesses already positioned. The 30-day notice period begins upon certified delivery. My signature felt decisive on each page. 30 years of financial sacrifice, transformed into legal weapons against the people who'd planned to warehouse me. The official seal pressed into the documents with satisfying finality. Copies for your records, originals for legal filing. Patricia organized the completed documentation with professional efficiency. The debt demands will be sent via certified mail today. I left her office carrying legal documentation that would transform my family's comfortable assumptions into financial emergency. The 30-day countdown had begun, though they wouldn't realize it until tomorrow's mail delivery. Outside, Spokane's November sky looked clearer than it had in weeks. Soon, very soon, Michael and Ashley would discover that their luxury lifestyle had an expiration date. 2 days of legal processing had culminated in this afternoon's appointment at Spokane Community Bank's credit headquarters. I sat in the conference room with 3 senior loan officers, my notarized documents spread across their mahogany table like weapons in a carefully planned assault. Mr. Collins, these guarantor demand letters appear to be in perfect legal order. Margaret Stevens, the senior credit manager, reviewed each document with professional resignation. You're requesting immediate acceleration on all 4 guaranteed loans. All loans must be repaid within 30 days. The loan officers exchanged glances that spoke volumes about what they knew and what I was about to unleash. Michael and Ashley's financial house of cards was about to collapse, and the banking system would be my enforcement mechanism. The mortgage alone is $283,000. Stevens pulled up their account on her computer screen, numbers that represented my family's lifestyle displayed in stark digital reality, combined with vehicle loans and credit lines. $410,200. I provided the exact figure I'd memorized, due in full within 30 days of legal notification. Stevens typed rapidly, updating loan statuses from current to accelerated, her keystroke sealing my family's financial fate. Mr. Collins, you understand the borrowers have no realistic ability to repay these amounts? That's their problem to solve. The other managers prepared official notification documents while Stevens completed the computer entries. Each keystroke transformed comfortable monthly payments into impossible lump sum demands that would destroy my family's carefully constructed facade. Legal service will deliver these documents within 2 hours. Stevens organized the papers with practiced efficiency. The 30-day notice period begins upon receipt. I left the bank at 4 o'clock, driving home through Spokane's afternoon traffic with the satisfaction of someone who just triggered a financial avalanche. By 6 o'clock, a legal courier would knock on Michael and Ashley's door with documents that would shatter their world. The phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Michael's name appeared on the display, but I let it go to voicemail. Then Ashley called, then Michael again. The desperate pattern had begun. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and waited. The courier would have reached their house by now, and they would be reading the demand letters with growing horror. 30 days to repay $400,000, or face foreclosure, repossession, and financial ruin. My phone buzzed with a text message from Ashley. "James, we need to talk immediately. There's been some kind of mistake." No mistake. 30 years of careful financial planning, systematically executed through the legal system they'd never bothered to understand. Another call from Michael. Another voicemail I didn't answer. Then a text. "Dad, please call us back. This is urgent." The urgency was entirely one-sided now. For weeks, I'd been the one seeking communication, cooperation, respect. Now they needed me, and I held all the power in our relationship. A third phone call, this one lasting until voicemail cut them off. I could imagine their panic, their desperate calculations, their growing realization that the comfortable lifestyle I'd subsidized was about to evaporate. The wine tasted better than any I'd enjoyed in years. My doorbell rang at 7:30. Through the window, I could see Michael's BMW in my driveway, the same luxury vehicle whose loan I'd just called due. I didn't answer the door. "Dad, please, we need to talk." Michael's voice carried through the house, tinged with panic I'd never heard before. "This is crazy, but we can't possibly do that." Ashley's voice joined his. "James, please open the door. We can work this out." I finished my wine and moved to the back of the house, away from their desperate pleas. Let them stand on my doorstep begging for mercy they'd never shown me. Let them experience the helplessness I'd felt when they planned to warehouse me in a nursing home. The doorbell continued ringing intermittently for 20 minutes before their car finally pulled away. My phone showed 15 missed calls and 12 unread text messages. Tomorrow would bring different conversations. Conversations where I held every advantage and they had none. The drive home from the bank had been triumphant, but the real satisfaction came from what I knew was waiting. 3 hours had passed since legal service delivered those devastating documents to Michael and Ashley's doorstep, and my phone had been ringing almost continuously for the past hour. I settled into my favorite armchair with a bourbon, letting the 6th call go to voicemail. Michael's name appeared repeatedly on the caller ID, each attempt more desperate than the last. The power dynamic that had governed our relationship for 30 years had completely reversed in a single afternoon. On the 7th attempt, I answered, "Dad, thank goodness you picked up." Michael's voice carried a panic I'd never heard before. "There's been some terrible mistake with the bank. They're saying we owe $400,000 immediately." No mistake. The silence stretched for several seconds as he processed my calm response. But this is impossible. The payments are current. We've never missed. I called the loans due, all of them." "You... what?" Ashley's voice joined the call, shrill with disbelief. "James, you can't do this. We have contracts. Read the fine print. Guarantor can demand immediate repayment at any time." Another silence, filled with the sound of rustling papers as they frantically searched their loan documents for escape clauses that didn't exist. "Dad, we were wrong. Forgive us." Michael's voice cracked. "The nursing home thing. We were stressed. We didn't mean... Yes, you were wrong, but it's too late." "Please!" Ashley had taken the phone, her composure completely shattered. "We can work this out. We'll forget about the nursing home. You can live with us." The irony was exquisite. 2 weeks ago, they'd planned to warehouse me against my will. Now they wanted me to rescue them from the consequences of their financial irresponsibility. "You called me a burden." "We were wrong. We were so wrong." Michael was back on the line, his voice breaking with desperate emotion. "You're not a burden. You're our family. We love you." Love. The word they'd never used during 30 years of taking my money. "James, please." Ashley's voice dissolved into tears. "We'll lose everything. The house, the cars, everything we've worked for. Everything I worked for." The phone went quiet, except for Ashley's muffled sobbing. I could hear Michael whispering frantically in the background, probably calculating their impossible situation. Their monthly income couldn't cover $400,000 in 400 years, let alone 30 days. "Dad, there has to be something we can do." Michael's voice had become smaller, quieter, the voice of a child seeking mercy from a parent. Some arrangement, some payment plan. "The legal documents are final. But we're family." Ashley had grabbed the phone again. "You can't destroy your own family. You destroyed this family when you decided I was disposable." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, cycling through denial, bargaining, anger, and back to desperate pleading. They offered everything they'd previously withheld: respect, inclusion, even moving me into their house as an honored guest rather than unwanted burden. Each offer met the same cold response: too late. "Think about Christmas dinner next week," Michael said finally, grasping at emotional straws. "Ashley's parents will be there, my cousins, everyone. We can announce that you're moving in with us instead of the other thing. Christmas dinner, how perfect. I'll be there." Relief flooded Michael's voice. "So, you'll work something out? You'll call off the loans?" "I'll be there for dinner. The loans stand." I hung up while they were still protesting, still pleading, still offering concessions that would have prevented this entire situation if they'd been genuine 2 weeks ago. The bourbon tasted like victory. Next week's Christmas dinner would provide the perfect audience for the final act of this carefully orchestrated drama. Let their extended family witness the consequences of betraying the man who'd supported them for 3 decades. My phone rang again. This time, I didn't answer. 25 days had passed since my family's desperate phone calls, and tonight's Christmas Eve dinner would be my final performance. I arrived at Michael and Ashley's house carrying a leather portfolio that contained the culmination of 30 years of careful documentation. The dining room sparkled with holiday decorations that couldn't mask the underlying tension. Ashley's parents, Robert and Martha, sat beside Michael's cousin Jenny and her husband. Everyone exchanged pleasantries while avoiding the obvious question: why had James Collins suddenly agreed to join them after weeks of silence? "Dad, thank you for coming." Michael's voice carried forced warmth as he carved the ham. "This means everything to us." I smiled and said nothing, positioning my portfolio discreetly beside my chair. Conversation flowed around safe topics: weather, holiday plans, Jenny's new job, while Ashley and Michael exchanged meaningful glances. They'd planned something, coordinated their approach for maximum social pressure. I could feel it building like storm clouds. "James, the grandchildren were asking about you," Martha offered hopefully. "They miss their grandfather?" "How thoughtful." Halfway through dinner, Michael set down his fork with theatrical precision. The table's attention focused on him as he cleared his throat. "Everyone, Ashley and I have an announcement." He looked around the table, ensuring maximum audience engagement. "We want you all to witness this. Here it comes. Dad, we've tried everything. Phone calls, letters, begging for mercy." Michael's voice grew louder, more performative. "But you've chosen money over family. You've chosen cruelty over forgiveness." Ashley joined the attack, her voice shaking with practiced emotion. "For 30 years, we've loved you, respected you, included you in everything. And now, when we need understanding most, you've turned your back on us." The guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to intervene or witness this family destruction. "So, we want everyone here to know." Michael stood, pointing across the table like a prosecutor delivering final judgment. "You are no longer my family." "Finally," Ashley added, her voice breaking with strategic tears. The table fell into shocked silence. Robert and Martha looked mortified. Jenny stared at her plate, wishing she were anywhere else. I folded my napkin calmly and smiled. "How interesting." "That's all you have to say?" Michael's face reddened. "We're cutting you out of our lives forever. Look under the table." The confusion was immediate. Everyone leaned forward, trying to understand my calm response to their dramatic disownment. I reached down and retrieved my portfolio, placing it on the table beside the Christmas centerpiece. "Since we're making announcements, I have a few documents that might interest everyone." I opened the portfolio methodically, extracting papers organized in perfect order. First, my new will, executed last month. I placed it where everyone could see. Michael and Ashley have been removed as beneficiaries. Everything goes to charity. Martha gasped. Robert's face went pale. Second, banking documents showing that I called due all loans I guaranteed for this family. I spread the foreclosure notices like playing cards. $410,000, due 5 days ago. You can't do this, Ashley shrieked, her performance dissolving into genuine panic. Third, surveillance evidence of how they spent money while claiming poverty. David's photographs landed on the table. Expensive restaurants, luxury shopping, spa treatments, all documented while they planned to put me in a nursing home. Jenny picked up one of the photos, her expression shifting from confusion to disgust. You were eating at Cascadia 3 times a week? The mortgage company begins foreclosure proceedings tomorrow, I continued, consulting my timeline. Vehicle repossession starts Tuesday. Credit accounts close Wednesday. The silence stretched until Robert finally spoke. Michael, is this true? He's destroying us. Michael's composure cracked completely. Our own father is destroying his family. Your own father, I corrected quietly, whom you called a burden and tried to institutionalize. I gathered the documents back into my portfolio while the table absorbed the full scope of what they had witnessed. Michael and Ashley sat in devastated silence, their public humiliation complete. Merry Christmas, everyone. Jenny picked up the will first, her face growing pale as she read the legal language that excluded Michael and Ashley from my estate entirely. James, this says everything goes to charity. Correct. Robert reached for the bank documents, his weathered hands trembling as he examined the foreclosure notices. Michael, these papers show you owe over $400,000. Immediately. We can't pay that. Ashley's voice cracked. Nobody could pay that. Martha held one of David's surveillance photographs, Michael and Ashley dining at an expensive restaurant while I sat alone in my house, planning their nursing home placement. You were eating out every night while discussing putting your father away? It's not what it looks like, Michael started weakly. What does this mean? Jenny asked, pointing to the debt acceleration clause. It means the game is over. I explained with clinical precision how guarantor rights worked, how 30 years of supporting their lifestyle had given me complete financial control over their future. Each document told part of the story: the college tuition I'd paid, the house down payment, the endless stream of money flowing from my accounts to fund their comfortable existence. $857,000, I said quietly. That's what I gave them over 3 decades, plus another $400,000 in guaranteed debts. The room fell silent except for Ashley's quiet sobbing. And they wanted to put you in a nursing home? Robert's voice carried disbelief and growing anger. They called me a burden, said my time had passed. I gestured toward the documents scattered across the Christmas dinner table. While living in a house I helped purchase, driving cars I guaranteed, enjoying a lifestyle my money made possible. Jenny examined the surveillance evidence with growing disgust. These receipts show hundreds of dollars spent on single meals. While planning Dad's institutionalization, Michael added bitterly, his voice flat with defeat. We've lost everything. Ashley looked up from the foreclosure notices, mascara streaking down her cheeks. 5 days, I confirmed. The mortgage company begins proceedings Tuesday. Vehicle repossession follows Wednesday. Martha set down a bank statement showing their maxed-out credit lines. How could you live like this while planning to abandon the man who supported you? Michael had no answer. His carefully constructed world of borrowed luxury was collapsing in real time before witnesses who would never view him the same way again. The surveillance shows spa treatments, golf equipment purchases, outdoor kitchen installations, I continued methodically, all charged to credit lines I guaranteed, while they researched nursing homes for the inconvenient father. Robert studied the legal documents with the attention of someone trying to understand how his daughter had participated in such calculated betrayal. Ashley, how could you support this? We thought he'd be happier there, she whispered. Happier or just out of your way? The question hung in the air like smoke from extinguished Christmas candles. Jenny gathered the papers into neat stacks, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to disgust. James, I had no idea. None of us knew how much you'd sacrificed. They made sure of that. Michael stared at his empty plate, his public humiliation complete. The man who'd pointed across this same table 40 minutes ago, declaring me no longer family, now sat broken by the weight of 30 years of documented ingratitude. What happens now? Martha asked quietly. Now they face the consequences of their choices. I stood and retrieved my portfolio, sliding the damning documents back into their organized sections. The legal system will handle the rest. The Christmas dinner that had begun with their attempted public shaming of me was ending with their complete exposure and destruction. Every guest now understood exactly who had betrayed whom and why justice had finally arrived at their door. I moved toward the front entrance, leaving them to process the wreckage of their carefully constructed lies. 1 month had passed since Christmas dinner, and my new apartment overlooked Spokane's riverfront park instead of the neighborhood where I'd spent 30 years funding someone else's dreams. The moving boxes were finally unpacked, and my modest living room felt more like home than that house ever had. Morning coffee tasted better when nobody expected me to pay for their mistakes. The phone rang at 10:30, Tom's name appearing on the caller ID. Our monthly check-ins had become routine since the legal proceedings concluded. "James, how are you settling in?" "Better every day." I set down my coffee cup and settled into the comfortable armchair I'd bought without asking anyone's permission. "The view here is spectacular." "Good to hear. I'm calling with the final report on your case." Papers rustled through the phone connection. All foreclosure proceedings completed successfully. The house sold last week. "And Michael and Ashley?" "Moved to a 2-bedroom apartment near the airport. Michael's working at a car dealership now. Commission only. Ashley took a job at a retail store." Tom's voice carried professional satisfaction. No more spa treatments or expensive restaurants. Learning to live within their means. Exactly what they should have been doing all along. Through my window, I watched joggers following the park's trails, people choosing healthy activities instead of expecting others to fund their entertainment. Simple pleasures that cost nothing but provided genuine satisfaction. Any legal challenges to the will or debt recovery? None. Your documentation was too thorough for any attorney to contest. Tom paused, and I could hear him smiling. The surveillance evidence alone would have convinced any judge that justice was served, rather than revenge. Justice. The word still resonated with perfect accuracy. What about the inheritance beneficiaries? Spokane Humane Society and United Way both received their documentation. They're planning recognition ceremonies next month if you're interested in attending. I might do that. Recognition for 3 decades of sacrifice, finally directed toward recipients who would appreciate rather than exploit generosity. Organizations that helped others instead of helping themselves to my bank account. James, I have to ask, any regrets about how everything unfolded? I considered the question while watching a family teaching their young daughter to ride a bicycle in the park below. Patient instruction, encouraging words, celebration of small victories, the kind of family dynamics I'd hoped to build but never received. None whatsoever. Not even about the family separation. Tom, they separated from me the moment they decided I was disposable. I simply made that separation legally binding. The conversation continued for another 15 minutes, covering final paperwork and account transfers. When we finished, I remained by the window, reflecting on the transformation from victim to victor that had begun 40 days ago in that same living room where they'd announced my expendability. My phone showed no missed calls, no desperate messages, no family emergencies requiring my financial intervention. For the first time in 30 years, my resources belonged entirely to me, available for my own comfort and charitable giving that would be appreciated rather than expected. The afternoon stretched ahead with possibilities. A walk through the park, lunch at a restaurant I'd choose without considering anyone else's preferences, perhaps a visit to the library where I could read without interruption. Simple pleasures that felt revolutionary after decades of family servitude. Outside my window, the Spokane River flowed steadily eastward, carrying away winter debris and making room for spring's new growth. Change was natural, necessary, and ultimately beneficial for everyone willing to adapt to reality. I raised my coffee cup in a quiet toast to the reflection in the window. A man who'd finally learned that family loyalty should flow both ways and that dignity was worth more than peace purchased through endless sacrifice. The future looked remarkably bright. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.